Can you imagine coming up to a road like that? I'd probably not be paying attention and slam right into that cliff face. Wouldn't I, Archer? Sorry. Dead ends happen to everyone, everybody. And by dead end, I don't know what you will think I mean by that. It will be different to everybody. When you get to a point in life and it feels like you've reached a dead end, where the plans you might have made, this is not panning out. The decisions you made that you thought were right at the time, this is not working. It seems as though it's a dead end in life. A career trajectory you thought you were on seems to have been closed. Doors are closed all around you and it feels like you have hit a dead end. It'll be different for everybody in the room, but everybody faces a dead end. Eric Liddell, I would say that dead end would have looked like that when he got the heat and he was like, that's it, and then everyone was going trader, trader. That would have felt a bit like a dead end. I've been training for years for this and this is a dead end. How you face your dead end determines who you are. So we're going to read about a massive dead end that's in the Bible. And it is the dead end, well, we can see because we have the context, it wasn't a dead end. But in the moment, suspend your, what's the phrase? Suspend disbelief? I don't know. Imagine you are one of these people. You have followed Jesus. You have given up everything. You are one of the, lots of disciples ended up, following him from place to place, 72 plus with the women and all that. You've given up everything. You're like, this is the Messiah. We have found him. He has been foretold and here he is. Here is our, this is the man who will lead us to victory and will overthrow and will be the, and then he goes and gets arrested and then he goes and gets killed and you're like, well, that wasn't right then, was it? Don't you think you'd be like, oops. Have I got to go back to my hometown now? Like, oh, sorry guys, I was really wrong. Your whole, this whole thing that the perspective that you had totally rocked. Totally rocked. Imagine, just try and imagine it. If you have a poor imagination, just try. That Jesus is now dead and has been dead for a day. And you're like, what are we meant to do now? He's gone. And you're not connecting the dots with all the things that he said to tell you it was going to happen because you haven't got your brain in that moment. That is where we're picking it up in Luke chapter 24. This is the story of the road to Emmaus. And to be honest, the road to Emmaus, there was an organisation called Road to Emmaus or something like that. For many, they didn't understand what on earth that was going on about. This is an incredible story. Let's read it together. Luke chapter 24. I think one of the biggest dead ends, the biggest dead end, when it appeared as though all hope was lost when Jesus was dead at this point. Well, they think. Now that same day, two of them, context, Jesus has died and we're like one day or just more than a day after he's died, right? And the disciples are kind of going everywhere. These two people are walking. Now that same day, two of them were going to a village called Emmaus. It's about 11 kilometres from Jerusalem. So they're leaving Jerusalem going towards this town called Emmaus. They were talking with each other about everything that had happened, and as they talked and discussed these things with each other, Jesus himself came up and walked along with them. But they were kept from recognising him. Fascinating. He asked them, what are you discussing together as you walk along? And they stood still, their faces downcast. They're sad, right? This is, I don't know, but it would have been even hard to even talk it through because it would have been such a disappointment. And I don't know if you've ever been so disappointed that you found it hard to talk through. But put yourself in this situation, this seemed like a massive dead end. One of them, named Cleopas, asked him, are you the only one visiting from Jerusalem who doesn't know the things that have happened there in these days? Big news, mate. You missed it. What things? He was like, what things? He didn't lie. He was just like, playing dumb. About Jesus of Nazareth, they replied to Jesus of Nazareth. He was a prophet, powerful in word and deed before God and all the people. So they're doing their best to explain what's happened now to this person who seems to have hidden under a rock for the last couple of years. The chief priests and our rulers handed him over to be sentenced to death and they crucified him. But we had hoped one who was going to redeem Israel. And what is more, it's the third day since all of this took place. In addition, some of our women amazed us. They went to the tomb early this morning but didn't find the body. In my opinion, and I could be wrong, you'd think someone's stolen the body, something's gone horribly wrong with this body. Who knows what's gone on with this body. At that time, it may not have seemed like the best news, but the body's now missing. They came and told us that they had seen a vision of angels who said he was alive. But it's all up in the air and there's a lot of doubt going on. Then some of our companions went to the tomb and found it just as the women had said, but they did not see Jesus. Sounds a bit sceptical of the women's testimony, but anyway. He said to them, "How foolish you are, and how slow to believe all the prophets have spoken. Did not the Messiah have to suffer these things and then enter his glory?" And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, as they walked along 11 kilometres, he explained all of it. He explained to them what was said in all the scriptures concerning himself, but in their opinion they were talking about somebody else. Don't you think they would have gone, how do you know all of this but you don't know what's happened in the last couple of days? It'd be a weird scenario. And as they approached the village, after walking 11 kilometres, Jesus continued on, and they're like, see you guys. But they urged him strongly to stay with us, for it's nearly evening, day's almost over. So he went in to stay with them. And when he was at the table with them, he was having dinner. He took bread, he gave thanks, he broke it, and he gave it to them. Very cool. Then their eyes were opened and they recognized him, and he disappeared from sight. And they asked each other, were not our hearts burning within us while he talked with us on the road and opened the scriptures to us? Can you imagine how exciting that walk would have been? As everything's being explained, and then you go, it was Jesus all along. And they got up and returned at once to Jerusalem. And there they found the 11, because the 12 had disappointed everybody, Judas. Found the 11, and those with them assembled together and saying, "It's true, the Lord has risen and has appeared to Simon Peter." We'll talk about that in a moment. And then the two told what had happened on the way and how Jesus was recognized by them when he broke the bread. Very exciting story. I would suggest this was the biggest dead end that humans have ever seen. Where it seems as though Jesus was not who he said he was, where it seemed as though the road, that's it. It seemed as though there was a big cliff. And I don't know what you're going through in your life. I don't know what you've been through or what you will go through. But chances are in this room there are stories unfolding as we sit here. And today I want to talk about what happens in the dead end, in that moment of the story. We can read this and go, oh, those two silly people. How could they not have recognized Jesus? Oh, I can't believe, can't you see where the story's going? No, they were in the moment. And when you look back at your life and you're like, oh, I remember that was a really hard time, it's easy to go, oh, you know, I of course had hope and faith the whole time that situation was unfolding. But when you were in the moment, it did not seem so easy and it did not seem so clear. It's easy to judge these two people for getting it wrong. Firstly, God obviously blinded them to the fact that it was Jesus. But second of all, it is harder in the moment than in retrospect. There wasn't a happy conclusion. They were sad. They'd probably given up everything, right, to follow Jesus. It seems they got it really wrong. Sometimes in life we put our hope in something and we really hope and we really have faith and we get it wrong, or we feel like we got it wrong and we're in that moment of a dead end. But I want the story of walking to Emmaus with Jesus to be a representation of when you have hit that dead end in life and Jesus takes you on an 11-kilometre walk. For me that sounds great. I like walking. For others who don't like walking, that's a nightmare. When disappointment has racked your whole being, things did not turn out the way that you thought they should have or they have. Point number one, and I've got 3 points. Point number one, God cares about your life in the dead end. It may feel as though God has abandoned you. It may have felt like Jesus abandoned them when he was killed. may have felt like all the things he said must have been wrong, because now he's not here anymore, and now we're, being targeted because we were followers of him, and now he's not even here to help us. But God actually cares about your life. And I want to make a weird point in this, because there's a lot of very obvious points. When Jesus rose from the dead, you would think he'd go straight to the 11. You'd think he'd go straight to the 11. When Jesus rose from the dead, he went to, as they reference, so it must have happened beforehand, he went to Simon Peter. Simon Peter, think back, before Jesus died on the cross, was a shocker. An absolute shocker. He denied and denied and denied Jesus. Who did Jesus appear? From gathering evidence, it appears Jesus appeared to him as one of the very, very first, if not the first. Can I just say, you may feel like God doesn't care about your life because you're not good enough, or you're just like the person who disappointed him. Jesus then also appeared to the women. Now I say the women, as in they were not main figures in the story. He appears to the women. You might think that you're not one of the main players in life. You're not an important person. Your story is not figuring large in God's, sight, because you're just a side player. You're not one of those main people God must care so much about. Jesus appeared to Simon Peter, the denier, the betrayer, and the women, right? And then he appears to these two people. One of them is unnamed, because their name doesn't even get into the story. The other is Cleopas. I wouldn't say main character in the Bible, but can I just say, probably one of the 72 disciples that were sent out? Probably, but I'm not super sure. Maybe the person with Cleopas was Cleopas' wife. Some people say that. Don't know. Unnamed. Don't know who they are to this day. Not the main players in the game. Of course he does appear to the 11. Of course he does. But can I just say, Jesus really cared about those people. And I'm not going to say the priorities were shown by who he appeared to first. But it was an interesting assortment of people that takes me by surprise. And then I say God cares about your life because you might feel like you're not a main player or you've really mucked up. Can I just say God cares about your dead end? God cares about what you're going through. He really, really cares about you and what's going on. You are not a side character. You are not a background character. You are firmly in God's sight and firmly cared for, and actually really he knows what's going on. And sometimes it can feel like God doesn't care about my life at all, because look at this dead end I'm at. The dead end does not represent that God doesn't care about you. I'll just say that. Point number 2 kind of links to that sometimes a dead end is for our benefit. I would actually hazard to say that dead ends are mostly for our benefit. A dead end can feel like God doesn't care at all, but God actually develops people he cares about. Who knows that character development is made by challenges? If you overcome challenges, you get depth from going through challenges. When you're chatting to somebody and maybe you've gone through a hard time, and you chat to somebody and they've never gone through that same kind of experience. And it's lovely to have support, but it is different when you're chatting to someone and they have been there and they know. And there's a deeper connection, you can get a comfort from those people that you might not be able to get from somebody who's never been in that situation. God develops us to be able to bring comfort to other people and to actually know and walk with him more. The understanding of God that we get when we have no clear direction, when we've hit that point, becomes the foundation then of our future. Because you kind of are stopped in your tracks. What am I going to do now if everything kind of falls apart? What am I going to do now? Who am I going to turn to? What's real to me? Let's sort this out right now because we're at a dead end. Cleopas totally, and the person with him, totally misunderstood how and why Jesus was going to come. Missed the mark completely, as did most of them, not all of them. Thought that Jesus was going to come and do the whole big deal of the changing of the, in the natural way overtake things. Meanwhile, Jesus was like, no, that wasn't the way I was ever going to return. You've got it completely wrong. And Jesus spent an entire 11-kilometre walk correcting the problems with Cleopas and the other person's understanding of God. Spent a really long time walking with him in a dead-end moment, explaining. Can I say, at a dead end, a lot of explanations are made. A deeper understanding of who God is, why he is, how he is, happens at a dead end. They were at a dead end. They needed Jesus to really undermine the presumptions they had made and come up with a clearer, better understanding of who Jesus is and what he came to do. Could only have happened with a dead end, and then it happened with Jesus walking and explaining. Jesus said this, he said to them, how foolish you are and how slow to believe all the prophets have spoken. Did not the Messiah have to suffer these things and then enter his glory? And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he explained to them what was said in all the scriptures concerning himself. There was a lot of error in their understanding of God. It needed to be fixed up. Jesus was kind enough to spend a really long walk fixing it all up. Sometimes the dead end, most of the time, dead ends are for our benefit, but it's what you do in the dead end. If you throw in the towel, throw in the towel, that one, then no, that's not going to end up being benefit because you've been tested and you've failed. But let's be people who have strength and courage to stick with Jesus even at a dead end moment. Now, in the dead end, you might detour like Eric Little did. Can't do the 100 metres. Try the 400 metres detour. It might be you've got to change course in your life completely. It might mean a correction of who God is. I don't know what kinds of things happen in a dead end, but stuff gets changed in a dead end for the better. God is in detours. He is in sticking even through and praying it through, you know what I mean, and getting through. He can be in that too. It's different for every circumstance. God is in it though. He is in your dead end with you. He has not abandoned you. Number 3, Jesus was a big fan of quality time, and there's no shortcut to quality time with Jesus. How long do you think it would take to walk 11 kilometres? What do you reckon?
2 hours and 30.
Have you done it? Have you done that? 2 hours and 30? And then that wasn't enough. Then they were like, have dinner with us too, please. Jesus is a big fan of quality time. What an amazing gift to just spend walking with the time with Jesus. They loved that walk. It was really, because they were like, our hearts were burning within us when he talked to us. It was so good. And they were like, don't end, dinner too. I don't know if you ever had that experience where you're so social, you just got to keep the party going. That's what they were like, dinner too. Jesus, fan of quality time. You might go, but I'm not a quality time person. I'm sorry, Jesus is a quality time person. You've got to bend what you bend to him, because he wants to spend time with you, and there is no shortcut to spending time with Jesus. I tell you what, all of a sudden there becomes a lot of potential for quality time when there's a dead end. Because there's not a whole lot going on because you've reached the end of the line. But what am I going to do now? Time to spend some quality time with Jesus. When was the last time you spent quality time with Jesus? That's a good question. When was it? Was it this week? Was it this month? Was it this year? That's a genuine question. Time to spend some more quality time with Jesus. Our relationship with God is like it's like an actual relationship. It's not a fake one, right? He calls us to love him with all of our heart, all of our soul, all of our strength, everything within us. I'm sorry, I can't do that if I'm not spending quality time with him. That's just impossible. And can I say that when you do spend quality time with Jesus, he answers a lot of questions, and he also brings a lot of comfort. That's the main thing with quality time with Jesus. A lot of comfort. He changes your perspective on things, like he did with these guys, kind of explaining things. But just sitting with God in your own time. You might not even have anything to say because you're so tired, you've got that end and you're just like, I'm out. Just sit with him. Journal, I don't know, put on a worship song to help you kind of stay focused. I don't know what it takes and how you do it. But quality time, you can't shortcut it. God loves his children. He really loves you. He cares about you. He cares about your life. Sometimes the dead end is for your benefit. Let's spend quality time with Jesus. If you feel like the road isn't clear at the moment, or if you feel like it's a dead end and you've got nowhere to go, can I just say, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. You're not the first person to reach a dead end. You're not going to be the last person to reach a dead end. Jesus is with you in the dead end, and he cares. And that's all I have to say today. All right, I'll get Mark to